Everybody, and welcome to my channel, Unliving the Lie. I'm Candace Renee Moon. I am a trauma recovery coach and I am a domestic violence survivor. In this channel, we talk about all things narcissist. Today, we are going to talk about projection, but more specifically, I'm going to answer a common fear that many survivors have, not all. Am I really the toxic one? Is it really me? This is a very common fear in the survivor community simply because you have been gaslit intensely for however long you were with the narcissist. You could have been with a narcissist for a decade. You could have been with them for 2 decades. You could have been with them for 5 years or 2 years, depending on the length of your relationship with them and how insidious and how long the gaslighting went on. You may actually think you are toxic. And sometimes we pick up what's called narcissistic fleas, where after we get away from the narcissist, we pick up certain traits and certain things, because we really do identify, humans will identify with the people they spend the most time with. Birds of a feather flock together. We spend so much of our time with the narcissist that we maybe have picked up toxic traits. I know I did. I had some views on things that were not mine. I would find myself getting angry about certain political things. I would find myself getting upset about certain social things. And I'm like, wait a minute, Candace, this isn't you. That was him. This is not how you feel. So I did have some narcissistic fleas when I originally left the relationship with the abuser. And I had to clear them out, and that happened naturally as I reconnected with myself. I started reconnecting with myself and figuring myself out again and coming back to myself, and I realized that was him. That wasn't me. That was some narcissistic fleas that I had gotten. But that is a different than actually believing and feeling like you are the toxic one. And it is because the narcissist has told you over and 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 over again in the relationship that you're the problem. Your reaction to their abuse is the problem. They can abuse you and scream at you and talk down to you and do horrific things to you. But then if you react and try to talk about your feelings and talk about, wait a minute, this isn't right. Like, what you said to me was wrong and I want to talk about it. I want to resolve it. They don't want to resolve it. Narcissists don't want to resolve anything. They don't. How much time do we spend? Think about it. How much time did you spend trying to resolve conflict with a narcissist and nothing ever happened and you ended up feeling worse afterwards? And this is why you start to think, well, maybe I am toxic. Maybe they have a point. Maybe I love drama so much. Maybe I'm doing all of this to myself. Maybe if I would just work on myself and read some more self-help books and figure out a way to be nicer and kinder to him or her, then maybe things will be better. So we start taking the blame. We start taking on the blame. That's a different thing than the narcissistic fleas. I mean, I can do a video specifically on that, but this is different. This is from you are actually so gaslit and so confused, and your identity is so almost like hidden from you that you start to believe what the narcissist is saying. And even when you're this video, I'm actually talking to those of you that are still with the narcissist. You may be still with the narcissist and doing what many survivors have done, and you end up on YouTube and you end up watching videos and you end up figuring out, oh my God, this is what's going on. I'm with a narcissist. So if you're in a relationship with a person and they are treating you wrong, they're twisting your words, they're blaming you for everything. They're telling you that you act like a spoiled child when all you're trying to do is talk about your feelings and tell them that what they did to you was wrong and get resolution. And then they're turning it around on you like you're wrong, or you're causing drama, or you're trying to start an argument, or you're just trying to cause trouble and you're trying to get on their ass. You're too controlling. You have a problem. You need to work on your problem. Maybe you need to go see a psychologist and get on meds because you're so unstable. That kind of stuff. If those kinds of things are being thrown at you when all you're trying to do is resolve a conflict, all you're trying to do is confront them about their lies and their abuse, you may be with a narcissist. And you are not probably at all the toxic one, even though they're trying to make you think you're the toxic one, right? And they do a really good job of it. They do a really good job of it. And you start to question yourself, like, oh God, what now? What am I doing now? What am I doing wrong now? What the hell? Now, for me, I had never been in a relationship where I got so blamed for everything all the time. Like, I was married for 15 years to an addict, but he never, honestly, and I know addicts can be difficult. Addicts can project and they blame you for why they're feeling the way they're feeling, and they act out. Like, addicts will display narcissistic behaviors, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are a narcissist, because a lot of times when an addict gets help and they heal from their drug addiction, those symptoms all usually go away. Most of the time they go away. But many that are actually narcissists and sociopaths, those symptoms don't go away. So if you're with someone that, maybe they do drugs and they do this stuff, and then they still have those qualities, they still display them even when they're not doing the drugs, they're probably a narcissist and a drug addict. But my point is, I was with someone that was just an addict, and he did display some narcissistic traits, but he was raised by a covert, malignant, maternal narcissist. So he had a lot of narcissistic traits because of her, but I don't believe he was a full-blown narcissist. He was an addict. And anyways, he never blamed me for why he did what he did. He always took responsibility and was actually proud in a kind of sick way. Like, he would say, I drink because I want to. So he was actually like proud of his choice, that this was his choice and this is what he was doing, and hell with everybody else. He was very selfish, but addicts are selfish. So I'd never had anybody blame me to that extent. Like, everything that went wrong, every mishap, this man found a way to blame me. Like, he would get into fights with people at work. And so then that would cause him to have stress and anxiety and anger, because narcissists don't know how to work through conflict. They don't know how. And when they're not being perceived by others as superior, they can't handle it. So when he would go to work, the few times he did have a job, which he kept for a few months, he always had conflict with people there. There was always those women in the office, they hate me. And he was always like having drama. And most of it was in his head. And half the time, though, but a lot of it was his own doing. And so he would have these problems with guys at work. They didn't like him. And I think the guy he was fighting with was another narcissist. I think he would have these fights with this one guy, and I think that guy was a narcissist too. And so these two narcissists are working together, and they hate each other, and they have this love-hate, really toxic connection. So he had that going on with this other guy that he worked with, who was very narcissistic too. And they were always fighting. And he actually had the nerve to say it was my fault, that I am the cause of why he's having problems at work, that it's all my fault. Like, this was in the beginning of our relationship. He seriously like made me believe that there was something that I was doing wrong to upset him and cause him to have these problems at work. And it was just so bizarre to me. I'd never had anyone be like, and if I said to him, and if I argued back, he would just scream even louder at me. And so I learned to just fawn and just not say anything and to shut down. But he blamed me for that. Like, I'm not even there. Like, I'm not there. How do I have anything to do with your maladaptive behaviors with your coworkers? Like, this is all you. But they don't take responsibility. And that's one of the big hallmarks. They do not take responsibility. They do not ever own up, because they have to be perceived as all good all the time, as perfect, wonderful, superior beings. And if anything comes in to highlight their negative qualities, anything, they will freak out and they will try to do damage control. And the way they do damage control is they find somebody else to blame. They find somebody to blame and project onto, so then they can, in their mind, believe that they are still superior and they are still better. So what they do is they like unpack their baggage and their garbage that they have inside. They unpack it and they hand it to you and say, here, this is yours. You take it, because I don't want it. This isn't me. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to face it. Here, You're the cause, you're the blame. And when that happens systemically over a long period of time, you are affected mentally, and you can start to believe what the narcissist says, that you are indeed the toxic one, because they will program you and condition you to believe you are to blame, you are a deficient person, it is all your fault, and it couldn't possibly be their fault because they are far superior to you and to everyone around. They don't make mistakes, they are perfect and they are flawless. But truly they know it's a lie. They know that it's not. Like, they're just the biggest fraudulent humans ever, the most dishonest people ever. They are the most dishonest to themselves, mostly. And then that leaks out into everyone else. So if you are wondering, the fact that you're wondering, am I the toxic one, tells me you are not the toxic one, because toxic narcissistic people don't self-reflect. They don't have the capacity to self-reflect. They don't have whole object relations. And I've said this in other videos before, meaning they don't see things objectively. They see nothing objectively. They have black and white thinking. It's either all good or it's all bad. And that's how they see themselves as well. They see themselves in black and white. And they primarily try to stay and keep themselves in the all good category. Now, unless they're trying to hoover you back or manipulate you, they will never admit to flaws. They will never admit to, yes, I'm a piece of shit, or I'm this, or I'm a liar. But my abuser would do it very strategically when he was trying to manipulate me and make himself appear superior. He would every now and then throw in, admit to one of his flaws. I always tell you the truth. One of his things, what they always did, which he was a pathological liar. His mouth was moving, he's lying. But then he would stand there and tell me, but I always tell you the truth, don't I? I always tell you the truth. And I'm like, no, you don't. But where are you going with this? And he was always talking about the fact that he was a drug addict. He always latched back onto that in the beginning of our relationship, where he admitted to me he was a drug addict. So therefore, he used that one instance where he was only telling me he was a drug addict to hoover me, to love bomb me, and to make me feel sorry for him. He was not admitting he was a drug addict because he actually wanted to change and actually wanted help. He was using it as a form of manipulation. So he was being honest in a sense, but he was only using that honesty and making himself, talking about one of his flaws and his bad qualities and his problems, but it was only under the guise of that he was trying to manipulate me. He wasn't speaking about it in any honest way, as if he was actually truly wanting to get help with his addiction. So he would always use that in manipulation. I always tell you the truth. I told you the truth about my drug problem, so you know everything. And that is another thing he will do, and I've seen him do it to his new supply as well. You knew everything about me when you met me. You knew I was a drug addict. I told you the truth, Candace, that I was a drug addict. So in other words, making me to blame for being upset. I had no right to be upset about his lies. I had no right to be upset about the fact that he ran off to the crack house to let hookers wear my lingerie and my clothes. Like, I didn't have the right to be upset about that, because I knew from the beginning, because he'd been so honest in the beginning of our relationship, telling me he was a drug addict. So he'd been so honest, never lied to me, always told me the truth. So therefore, I have no right to question him and confront him about his lies and his deceptive, awful, horrific behavior. So that is the only time a narcissist will ever try to tell a truth, and they'll use it in a way. They'll tell a truth, but they will talk about a negative quality within themselves. That is the only time they will actually talk about a negative quality within themselves. But it's actually in the sense of, I'm all good because I'm telling you about this negative quality that I have. I'm admitting to you that I'm a liar, and I'm admitting to you that I screwed up and I have problems and I did all these bad things because there's something wrong with me, under the guise of they're all good, right? Does that make sense? So that is the only time they will do that, and it will confuse you. It confuses you. It is designed to confuse you. It's gaslighting. It's manipulation. It's being a con artist. It's evil. And it will be used to confuse you. It will be used to make you question your sanity. It will be used to make you question, am I really the crazy one here? Did I get this all wrong? Like, It is true. He did admit to me that he was a drug addict. That is true. He did tell me the truth about that in the beginning of the relationship. He told me that that was true. So you start to, in your mind, get confused. And that's part of the game. That's part of what they will do to keep you confused, to make you believe you are indeed the toxic one, because hear how wonderful they are. They always tell you the truth. They're always honest and they're always straightforward with you, but really they're not. It's all a manipulation designed to make you think you're crazy, and it's all gaslighting. So that is one thing that they will do to you and will cause you to question your sanity. Another thing that they do, and this was done to me systematically all the time, almost every single day, it's the projection. The projection is the part that really is mind-boggling. Like I was saying in the beginning, I'd never been with someone that blamed me for every single thing. So many things that I'd never ever been blamed for before. And I used to tell him, I'm like, you're the first person to ever say any of these things to me. Like I would say that to him. I'm like, because he'd always be, why are you acting so surprised? He would get really angry with me when I would dismiss the stuff he would say, when I would dismiss his projections and I would dismiss the things he was trying to accuse me of and the motivation. He was always trying to assign motivation to me, which is another form of gaslighting. He was always trying to deprogram me and tell me what I was thinking and tell me what I was doing. And I would dismiss it because I knew who I was. Like that was one thing about me. I had a really good sense of who I was and my intuition. I was very in tune to my intuition. Now that doesn't mean I was above the trauma bond, and it doesn't mean I was above being abused, because I got deeply into a trauma bond. We'll talk about trauma bonds on another video, but he got me upset. He would get really upset with me when I would be like, no, I'm not thinking that, or that's not me. What are you talking about? That's not me. And he would get really in a rage. It would actually cause him a narcissistic injury when I would reject his projections onto me. It was the most bizarre thing. When I would reject his projections and I would not allow him to project onto me, he would get an injury. He would get upset, and then he would go into a rage. It was this cycle over and over again. But I still, like, the projection hurt me more than anything. Now, some of you guys, it depends on the personality and your constitution, and it depends on your background, your childhood. Maybe you were raised by narcissistic parents and you're used to this. You're used to being blamed for everything. You're used to being told that everything is your fault. So you have a partner now that's a narcissist telling you these things. So it's easy for you to believe, yep, I'm the toxic one. It's got to be me. All my life, my parents told me I was the toxic one. So it has to be me. And that is very, very, very common for survivors. That's why you guys think like I'm the toxic one. Now, for me, it wasn't necessarily that I believed I was toxic, but it still hurt just as much that this person that you're with is trying so hard. Like I kept trying to understand, like, why is this person trying so hard to make me think I'm bad and to blame me and to not, like, you can't, when you're in the middle of it, you don't always have the ability, because of the gaslighting, you don't have the ability to articulate and really sit down and understand, and they want it that way. That's why they gaslight you so much consistently over and over. It's definitely a campaign to deprogram you, and they'll get into your head. No one can get into your head better than a sociopath and a narcissist, because this is what they do. They study people, and in the love bombing stages in the beginning, they were getting inside of you, and you were open and willing because they were being so kind and they were mirroring you, and you thought you met this fantastic person. So during that stage is when they get inside your head. They get inside you and they want to take control, and they're getting inside of your head. They're getting inside of you not because they want to get to know you and they want to be able to do things good for you. They're doing it so they know how to control you. That's ultimately what it is. So they know how to control you. So now at this point, they know all your weaknesses, and they know how to get in there and control you and cause you to doubt yourself, play upon your weaknesses. And that's what they do. That's why it gets so confusing after you've left, or after, even if you're still with them and you're wondering, well, maybe I am the toxic one. No, if you're wondering that, you are not the toxic one. If you are wondering that, So you're being gaslit, and the gaslighting is so intense that you really are in a fog, okay? You're in a fog and you're thinking, I must be the crazy one. I must be, you're in a fog. I must be the crazy one because you feel crazy. You feel crazy. Another thing I want to touch on that they do consistently, and I think I alluded to this, my abuser would project onto me all the time. And I never took it as truth. Now, some survivors and victims, you may take it as truth when they're projecting onto you because, like I said a few minutes ago, you grew up in a toxic home where your narcissistic parents or siblings were constantly, I'm trying to adjust my glasses, were constantly making you feel like you were the problem. So you were used to that. So now you're with this narcissistic partner and they're projecting onto you and you're taking it as truth because this is how you have been all your life. And you think, I must be the toxic one. I've been told this all my life. So what they're saying is true. Now for me, I didn't take it on as truth because I knew it wasn't truth, but it still hurt me very, very deeply. He would say the most insane things to me. Like, I'll give you an example. After it wasn't the final assault, it was the third assault where he went to jail. And when he was in jail rehab, see, the courts ordered him because I was trauma bonded. Because I was so trauma bonded, I worked with a prosecutor and I asked them, can you please, he's a crack addict, he needs help with drugs. This is all because of drugs. I was blaming all the abuse on the drug use, which was not true. Like, the drug use was not why he was violent. He was violent and abusive because he's an abuser and it was his choice and he felt entitled to do it. I know that now, but when I was in the trauma bond, I didn't know. So I worked with the courts to get him put in like a drug rehab facility, lockdown, court ordered. So he was able to communicate with me. When he was in there, he sent me several texts telling me, angry at me, enraged at me. And I remember confronting him and I said, you don't have any remorse, do you? Why don't you ever have any remorse? I said, why do you think you have the right to be angry at me? And then he went off in these crazy text messages. I just posted it in TikTok, one of the huge projections that he was doing, where he went on this tirade in a tirade text message telling me that this wasn't about him right now. This is about me, Candace. This is about you, Candace, and all your abusive behavior and all the rotten things you've done to me. And he was just going on and on and on. And I needed to actually, if I changed the syllables to I instead of you or me, meaning him, he was word for word saying to me, projecting what I was feeling towards him and what was the truth. The truth was he has been hurting me the entire relationship, and I should have been saying to him, until you start taking responsibility for your egregious abusive behavior, we can't be together. He was saying it to me. Talk about projection. Everything he was ranting to me was what I should be saying to him, that he should be taking responsibility for the abuse. This is not right. What you're lying about me, you're hurting me, you're deliberately manipulating me, you're toxic. Everything that you do is a manipulation. Everything you do is toxic. Like, all the things that were him, he was disowning and he was projecting onto me. And that was just one example that I have. I have an actual text message where I have the proof of it. But there were so many times he would be ranting and raving and bitching at me. And even just simple bitching, complaining conversations, it was always projection. It was always like, Candace, you don't have friends. You just do this and you're so fake and you do this and you do this and you. And it's like, I would stand there and I would listen, and I used to just tune it out. I mean, I seriously would tune it out so that I didn't hear it, because he was always doing the same things. It was always the same crap every day. Candace is to blame. Candace does this. You're this. You're this. You can't clean the kitty litter right. You do this. You do that. You don't have this, and you this, and people think this about you, and people talk about you, and blah, 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 blah. You can imagine. If you're living with a narcissist or a toxic person, you know what I'm talking about. So I would tune it out. And one day I was just standing there doing dishes, and he was in one of his blah, 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 blah modes. And I just tuned him out, and I heard little bits and pieces of it. And literally, he was talking about himself every time he was doing this. Literally, it was his confession of himself. It was his disowning of his own maladaptive traits being thrown at me as if they were me when they're really him. And I said to him, I remember looking at him, and in my mind, because I had tuned him out, but unconsciously, I knew, and consciously I knew he was talking about himself. So I remember turning and looking at him and thinking, I said, babe, I said, you have some friends, don't you? You have people that like you, don't you? And he got all angry and was like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about you. And I was like, no, you're kind of talking about yourself, really, truly. So that's something that they do. That is absolutely something that they do. They will take their own maladaptive, evil, awful behaviors, the behaviors within themselves that they don't like, the behaviors that they disown, all their abusive traits, all their abusive qualities, and instead of owning up to them and taking responsibility for them, they will unpack them and hand them to you and say, here, you take these because this is you, this isn't me. I'm disowning me. I have to be seen as all good all the time, and I cannot look at the fact that I have negative traits and I'm being abusive and I'm being wrong, so I'm not going to own up to that. I'm going to project it all onto you. And the text messages I was receiving from him while he was in his lockdown rehab, court ordered, were his own personal confessions. All I had to do was change the I or you, switch the names around, switch things around, and it was what I should be saying to him. But he was saying it to me, and it's so twisted. But this is what narcissistic people do and toxic people do. They twist things around so intensely, and so like they invert reality. They will take your reality and completely invert it. So everything that you know about yourself, is being a good person, being a likable person, being a person with good qualities, being a person with talents and abilities and really good traits. Everything you know about who you are, they are going to tell you is not true. They're going to tell you that's not true, and they're going to go on a campaign of trying to deprogram that, and they're going to try to fill it up with the lies. They're going to fill it up with all of their own personal lies of what they are, because they don't have whole object relation. They don't see people objectively. They see everybody in all good, all bad, black, white, and they don't want you to be an individual. They don't want you to have your own identity at all. So they are going to try to take away your identity. And how they take away your identity is through gaslighting, it is through projection, it is through devaluation, and it is through blaming. And you do not know if you are coming and going. And like I said in the beginning, they will try to act like they are these honest people, and they will confess to the wrong things that they've done, and then turn around and tell you, but I always tell you the truth, don't I? Don't you remember? I told you from the beginning I was a drug addict and I had PTSD and I had problems. Like, no, you don't have PTSD. You have a drug problem and you are a sociopath. You do not have PTSD because you do not have the feelings that a normal person has. How could you have PTSD and be traumatized? You are the one traumatizing people. You are the one hurting people because you are a sociopath. And the psychologist agrees. That's why you have the diagnosis. But they play these games and they will say, oh, but I've been so honest with you, and you're just, this and this. And then you question because of all the gaslighting that they've been throwing at you. You sit there and question, well, he did admit to me in the beginning. Yeah, he admitted he was a drug addict. He did tell me the truth. And you know the truth about me, Candace. You know what I am. So why are you getting so mad at me? You knew who I was, and you're still here with me, and you know who I am. They'll do that kind of low shit. And that's just manipulation. That's gaslighting. You are not the toxic one. So if you're watching this and you're in a toxic relationship, or you think you might be in a toxic relationship, and any of these things that I'm talking to you about you relate to in any way, shape, or form, you are with a toxic person, possibly a narcissistic person, or even a sociopathic person that is not treating you correctly. And there's something within you that knows you are not being treated correctly. You are being abused. And if you are sitting there wondering, and questioning, am I the toxic person? Am I the narcissist? And so even if you are not in the relationship, let's say you're out of the relationship and you know they're a narcissist and you know you broke up with them, you know you can't be with them, there still might be a part of you wondering, well, maybe I was the problem the whole time. Because you'll see them move on. You'll see them move on with someone else. They'll get a new supply and they'll pretend and act like they're having this fantastic life, and so then you'll be like, well, maybe they were right the whole time. Maybe it was me the whole time, because look how happy they are right now with this other person. Come back to reality. Remember how they were with you in the beginning, how they idolized you in the beginning, and then as soon as they realized you weren't this perfect person, which no person is a perfect person, they started to devalue you. This is what they're going to do to that other person. They have a false facade put up. It's a false mask. They're just wearing a false mask. They're just up in their love bombing game. They're love bombing that person right now. It's not real. It's a fraud. It's fake. Understand, everything about these individuals is a fraud, and it is fake. They are liars. They are frauds. They lie to everybody, and mostly they lie to themselves because they disown their own maladaptive, evil, abusive behaviors, and they project it all on you. So trust me when I tell you, you are not the narcissist and you are not the toxic one. It is not true. It is them. And the fact that you're confused about it and wondering about it and wondering if you indeed are the toxic one, you're not. Because toxic, narcissistic people do not self-reflect. They do not have the ability to self-actualize. They do not have the ability to look within because they don't have the ability to see things objectively. And if you can't see life or anything objectively, you can't look at yourself and be honest with yourself. They are liars. So they're not going to tell themselves the truth. They just aren't. They are going to serve you up a lie and then make you live the lie and tell you the lie is truth. That's why it's actually so painful. So it's nothing that you did. There's nothing you could have done. There's no self-help book you could have read that could have helped you be a better person, that could have helped you be with them in a better way, that could have helped you give them more love and compassion, and then they would be nice. No, there is nothing that you could have ever done to make them a good person, because they are inherently evil and bad. They are not good people, and there is nothing redeemable about them. Yes, I said it. There is nothing redeemable in a narcissist or a sociopath. Nothing. So you've wasted so much energy trying to give them love and compassion and think they're going to change and be good, because they're not. Everything about them is living a lie, and they're trying to force you to live that lie, and they've done a pretty good job of gaslighting you. Because if you're questioning your own sanity and you're questioning whether you're the narcissist, they did exactly what they set out to do, to make you think you're crazy and to make you think you're just like them, because they want you to be just like them. You're an extension of them. You're not allowed to have attributes and feelings and qualities and gifts that they don't have, because that's a threat to them, and that's a threat to their perceived superiority. So everything they do is calculated and for a purpose, but you're breaking free. You're coming out, you're stepping out of your cognitive dissonance. You're watching this video, you're looking on YouTube, you're Googling things, because you know they're trying to sell you a lie. And even though there's parts of you that are doubting your own sanity, it will come back. You are not insane. You are not toxic. You are traumatized. You are probably trauma bonded, but you are not the toxic one. So we are going to end on that note. Thank you guys for your support. If you resonate with this, please like and subscribe. Share this with anyone that you feel like in your life could benefit from this and hear this. Share it. Maybe you have a friend that thinks that she or he is the toxic one when you know for a fact the person they're with is the toxic one. Share this video with them. Let them share it with them. Let them connect with me. And if you want to connect with me, my website, unlivingthelie.com. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram. There's all kinds of places you can find me. But if you just go down to the link below in my email, you can email me, and my website is down below. You will find me, connect with me. I would love to hear from you. I would love to connect with you. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and we will talk again soon. Namaste.